Hello and welcome to the Martini Shot, home of movie reviews and movie-themed cocktails. Before we get into the review of Strange Darling, let's fuel ourselves with the thrill of the chase with an energetic cocktail called the Electric Lady. This is a fairly simple cocktail that you can build right in the glass. The first thing I'm gonna do is completely optional, but considering it's called the Electric Lady, I figured we might as well break out the electric dust again. If you're not familiar with electric dust, it is this powder made of this plant called buzz buttons that create this nice tingling sensation in your mouth when ingested. Odds are you're not gonna have this, so you don't really have to worry about this step. I'm just doing it for myself mostly. And I'm just gonna put it around the rim of the glass, kind of like how you would use salt or sugar. All right, now we can start adding our ingredients, first starting with some fresh blueberries. I'm gonna throw in about 5. Follow that up with 3/4 ounce of fresh lemon juice and 2 ounces of coconut rum. Go ahead and muddle those together. Top up the glass with ice, and then you're gonna be utilizing some dragon fruit flavored Red Bull. You can fill the glass all the way up if you'd like, or if you're like me who doesn't really drink a lot of energy drinks and doesn't want their heart to collapse, you can do about half of the Red Bull and then top the rest up with soda water. Give it a quick stir to combine, and then you can garnish it with a lemon wedge and maybe even a couple extra blueberries. And there you go, now you have the Electric Lady. Sweet, tart, refreshing. The pairing of the blueberries and the dragon fruit is very, very nice, very juicy, while the lemon really kind of brings out some more of those sour notes that are in the Red Bull. Cutting it with the soda water does make it a little bit lighter, a little bit more bubbly. It doesn't feel like it's going to disintegrate your teeth as much as it would if you were to use just straight up Red Bull, but you can still feel that caffeine kick that comes with it. I can already kind of feel it in my chest already. And of course, the electric dust brings this nice kind of candy sour complexity to it, but then it starts to change in your mouth. You might find yourself salivating a little bit and your tongue will start to tingle. It's a really unique sensation that you can't really find in many other ingredients. But yeah, overall, this is a pretty solid late summer drink. The coconut rum pairs excellently with these fruit flavors, and it's got an ample amount of caffeine in it to really give you a kick in the pants if you're, say, chasing someone through the woods or you are being chased yourself. I don't judge, whatever you're into is fine by me. Now that we have our drink, let's get right into the review. If you're looking for a film filled with love, violence, and revenge, please don't watch The Crow. Instead, watch Strange Darling. Strange Darling is a horror film directed by J.T. Molnar that follows a cat and mouse chase between a woman and a man that's filled with murder, drugs, and a highly interesting presentation. Told in non-linear chapters and framed like an art house film, Strange Darling is a hell of a fun time that plays with the conventions of the familiar setup to craft a darkly funny showcase of weirdos that tackles some interesting talking points. How it tackles these may not sit quite right with some, which is why I believe this is one of the most controversial films of this year. I'll get into why I think that a bit later, but for now, let's talk about the rest of the film. I'll be honest, when this film first started, I thought it was going to be pretentious as hell. The very first thing you see is the words "shot on 35mm film," followed by an explanation that the story is told in 6 parts. These two things aren't inherently bad. I love fractured timelines and traditional shooting as much as the next insufferable film, bro. But announcing these things from the get-go really made it sound like the film was working on a different plane. A thinking man's horror film, if you will. Luckily, these worries were quickly forgotten within the first few minutes. Everything is so gorgeously vibrant, colored with a primely saturated palette that actually changes a bit depending on what part of the story you're in. Natural light is utilized incredibly efficiently to instill realism, while the glow of blue and red neon give the film a seedy thriller aesthetic. A lot of attention is given to blocking and staging, with every type of setup feeling intentional, from its split diopters to its one-shots. It's one of the most striking horror films to come out of this year. The non-linear story never feels like a tacked-on gimmick decided on at the last minute to give it some Tarantino or Nolan flair. The way the story is structured is highly intentional, allowing information to be portrayed as misinformation, tricking you into questioning what has happened and what will happen. It's a fun little tool for subversion that makes the somewhat simple story a lot more fun to experience. The expectations it's trying to toy with aren't the most groundbreaking. You'll probably be able to clue in pretty early on. Yet the presentation is everything. It makes the setup a lot more believable, not only in universe, but for yourself as well. Are some of the hints a little too on the nose and obvious from the opening credits? Sure, but it's still a blast to watch unfold. Our traditional man and woman setup is captained by Kyle Gallner and Willa Fitzgerald respectively, who do a great job at fitting into their respective archetypes while also bringing some surprises as well. Their chemistry and dynamic is constantly being twisted, faking you out into believing one thing 1 minute before taking the wind out of you the next. There's a kind of two-faced nature to their roles that they both fill beautifully, really making you wonder at times who you should be rooting for and who's the most sane of all despite everything they do. Once you do learn more and more about what's going on, their performances become less surprising but never not entertaining. Both actors kill in this role, wearing many different faces and expressing a wide range of emotions and intentions in the process. Also, shout out to that old mountain couple that shows up later, who make one of the most obscene breakfasts I've ever seen. A whole stick of butter for just your eggs? Mountain men must be built different. The film attempts to spark conversation on a lot of interesting topics, mostly pertaining to dating. It teeters on a dangerously thin line when it comes to tackling consent, the risks that come with it, and just how depraved you can get with it while still respecting one another's wishes. The way the film goes about this is shocking, but also contains a bit of dark humor to it as well, never going completely brutalist or cynical with its idea. Maybe that is actually a deterrent for some, because despite how deranged it can be, it's not the kind of over-the-top slasher you may anticipate. It has its squeamish moments of people getting shot and carved up, but the uncomfortable feeling you may experience isn't going to come from the gore. Let's talk about that controversy now. We're gonna get into spoilers briefly, so if you don't want to be spoiled, go to the timestamps below to hear my final thoughts. If you're still here, you're gonna get spoiled. Cool? Cool. Near the end of the film, the lady who is revealed to be a serial killer named the Electric Lady finally gets the upper hand on the cop she tried to murder. He finally tracks her down and handcuffs her to a freezer, but she manages to mace him and bite out his jugular. Unfortunately for her, the cops have already been called and are on their way. She manages to stage the scene to look like she was beaten and SA'd by the cop, managing to kill him in self-defense. Two cops arrive, one man and one woman, to assess the scene. The female cop immediately identifies the lady as the victim, and despite the pleas of her superior to wait for backup, the two decide to take the lady to the hospital themselves. Not checking her for weapons, she's able to force the lady cop out of the car and makes the male cop drive her off. This scene of falsifying a rape allegation is absolutely going to rub people the wrong way, and I kinda get it. This is a male director making a film about a female manipulator that fakes a heinous crime to ruin the life of a man. More often than not, you're not going to get a proper, insightful approach to this issue from someone who doesn't have the ability to experience it, especially when consent and promiscuousness are weaponized so much in this day and age. It gives fuel to those who loudly protest things like Me Too and sexual assault charges rarely ever sticking. That being said, I don't think you can shy away from these topics as ammunition to make you uncomfortable, especially with a main character like this. She isn't a representation of all women, nor does her taking advantage of certain sensibilities make her one of those girl boss killers you want to root for. She is a villain who kills a lot of people. She has some morals, but it never exonerates her from the crime she commits. If you feel icky, then that means it had the intended effect on you. These kinds of things are never as black and white as we'd like them to be, and the film knows that. But let me know what you thought of that down in the comments. I'm super interested to hear your takes. While its subversions aren't the most revelatory or unique thing to happen to a genre now steeped in deconstruction, Strange Darling still whips up a fun ride thanks to its performances, visuals, and playfulness with story structure. In the moment, it's fun to get caught up in the twists and turns, but standing back and seeing the whole picture does make it feel a little less impactful than it did during the former. Despite some very on-the-nose plottings and the film occasionally reminding you how smart it thinks it is, I still think this was a blast to watch in the theaters. It's easily one of the best horror films to come out this year, and it's more than enough reason to take a swing on a film that may only have 2 showtimes a day. Remember kids, more showtimes does not always equal better movie. Remember that when the only thing playing at your theater is Mufasa in December. For my rating, I'm giving this film 3.5 cans of bear spray out of 5. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Martini Shot. If you saw Strange Darling, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. And if you like what you saw here and would like to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me across all social media channels. Those links are down in the description below. And if you enjoy movie reviews and movie-themed cocktails, be sure to check out my website, martinishot.blog. Until next time, thank you again for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Live deliciously, but please remember to drink responsibly.